It's amusing to me how overtly feminist the Tao Te Ching is. Hear me out.
What is the Tao Te Ching?
Let's start with a recap of what the Tao Te Ching is, also known as the Lao Tzu. Actually, hilariously enough, the Tao Te Ching goes by many names. It's a scriptural text consisting of 5,000 characters divided up into two books consisting of 81 verses. One book is the Tao and the other book is De, and which book comes first is kind of like it's a whole question.
And that also frames the two core themes of the text. What is the Tao? And to try and grasp the Tao, we start by revealing the many names of the Tao and considering the many forms or manifestations of the Tao. The second theme is addressing how to embody De, the virtuous path or way of the Tao. The book then sets forth maxims and guidance to define what is now known as Taoist philosophy.
The verses themselves read like poetry. Case in point, the most famous opening lines, at least according to the orthodox order of the verses. 道可道,非常道,名可名,非常名. You didn't need to understand a word I just said to know that that was poetry. The path that can be told is not the transcendent path. The name that can be named is not the transcendent name. In fact, that's where we're going to begin in this little video chat about the Tao Te Ching and feminist metaphysics.
Feminist and feminine implications in the Tao Te Ching.
In verse 1, right out of the gates, we're talking about the Tao, a substantive void, hollow, like a womb that came before heaven and earth. The text itself tells us that the Tao goes by many names. Caveat, none of those names we use are the Tao's true name, Jinming, which is a very important Taoist principle that I'll cover in a future video. In that first book, Tao Jing, each verse reveals different names for the Tao. What is the very first name for the Tao we receive as revelation?
物之母, the mother of myriad beings.
One of the many names for the Tao according to the Tao Te Ching, and in fact, it is the first name that the Tao Te Ching gives us, the mother of myriad beings. Remember in a previous video when I talked about Xuan as a signpost for secondary and subtextual occult meanings in the text, right? That opening verse ends with 玄之又玄,众妙之门.
Mystery, this perpetual mystery, a gateway to the universe of wonders. Miao, by the way, is the same miao we use for esoteric Buddhism to mean that which is considered esoteric or secret teachings.
The verse goes on to say, two diverging paths of the Tao will both ultimately take you to the same destination, leading to the one unrevealed name. So the destination that the two diverging paths take you to is, in fact, a gateway that leads you to yet another journey. What is that gateway that leads to the perpetual mystery?
It is, according to the Tao Te Ching text itself, the gateway of the mysterious feminine. Gushen, one word, was the divine spirit of harvest and abundance, etymologically the figurative image of an ever-flowing fountain of nourishment. It's the goddess of harvest and grains, who is described as immortal, honored as the mysterious feminine. You'll see on screen how that reference to the mysterious feminine is repeated in the very next line.
The gateway of the mysterious feminine is called, notes the Tao Te Ching, is called the foundation of heaven and earth. So the origins and creation of the universe from a Taoist perspective, if you are citing from the Tao Te Ching, is the mysterious feminine, the mother of myriad beings, and it is that mother of myriad beings that became the foundation of heaven and earth. And the figure of speech uses female genitalia to describe the foundations of heaven and earth.
Now let's jump to the last line of verse 20. 我独异于人而贵十母. I am singular, and yet I take my nourishment from the primordial mother. You'll see on screen to the leftmost column, I've provided 3 other English translations of this line. Pause the screen if you'd like, because this particular line is of quite a bit of importance overall in terms of iconic, definitive Taoist philosophy.
That line, 我独异于人而贵十母, is another one of those really famous, oft-quoted lines from this book. And it is quoted by Taoist philosophers as addressing the metaphysical questions of Who am I? Where do I come from? And what is my purpose? That line, I am the singular and yet take nourishment from the primordial mother, is the Taoist answer to those three questions. I am the singular, singular meaning how you distinguish yourselves from other, how you're different. Individuation. So in addressing head-on some of the biggest philosophical questions we have, Lao Tzu or Lao Tzu scholars answer with seeking nourishment from a mother figure, and here specifically in context would be a primordial mother. In Christianity, man's relationship to God is often described with the analogy of man's relationship to his father. But here, so this is not my interpretation, but it is the canonical interpretation of the text by Chinese Taoist scholars. Man's relationship to the Tao is analogous to man's relationship with his mother. I'm starting to see why Asian guys are such mama's boys. To lay the foundation, let's look at a couple more passages.
Verse 10, as the gateway of heaven opens and closes, is there deference to the feminine? The chapter ends with to birth, to nurture, born without needing. This is called Xuande, the hidden code.
It's intriguing to me that in the middle of that passage, you kind of get out of nowhere this question presented as the gateway of heaven opens and closes. Is there deference to the feminine? To understand Xuande, a key fundamental concept in esoteric Taoism, translated loosely to the hidden code, you start with deference to the feminine. That's why the first name revealed was the mother of myriad beings. That's why you take nourishment from the primordial mother if you want to become an ascended one. The hidden code, 玄德, is revealed through the mysterious feminine, 玄品.
Chapter 61. The feminine surmounts the masculine by means of stillness, and by means of stillness can subdue.
In terms of sex and gender, word choice here is interesting. Ping refers to the female of a species and of female genitalia. It appears in 5 key passages in the Tao Te Ching, many of which we've already looked at, in reference to the mysterious feminine, who is the goddess of fertility, the gateway of the mysterious feminine. A rather peculiar reference in verse 55. If you know what I'm talking about, you're laughing right now. If you don't, this is not a can of worms I'm opening in this video chat, so we're just going to continue. And twice in verse 61, which we just looked at, comparing Tian Sha, the world, to the feminine, and then going on to say that the feminine surmounts the masculine by means of stillness. Meanwhile, Mu, referring to the male of a species and male genitalia, appears only twice in the Tao Te Ching. That very odd verse 55, where male genitalia is responding to or being stimulated by the feminine, and verse 61, where again it is about the masculine yielding in response to the feminine. That's interesting, right? There are standalone, independent references of feminine power with no dependency on the masculine, whereas there are no standalone, independent references of masculine power. When it comes up to be de, to walk the virtuous path of the Tao, the masculine must show deference to the feminine. But let's pause and rewind and go back to the basics to discuss what feminist metaphysics is.
What do we mean by feminist metaphysics?
When we say metaphysics, we're looking at what we believe to be structures of reality. Because human societies tend to be patriarchal, our philosophies skew toward a bias that privileges masculinity. Feminist metaphysics begins by viewing the different sexes as equal, and from there, how do we construct gender-neutral ideas and principles of the natural world? To that end, I posit that the Tao Te Ching is poignantly feminist.
How was the universe created?
That's one of those big topics in metaphysics to ponder on. So let's see how the Tao Te Ching answers that question. Then we'll ask whether the Tao Te Ching's take on that topic is feminist.
Verse 52 is quite on point here. 天下有始, 以为天下母. The world has a beginning, and it arose from the mother of the world.
Or if you prefer, another way to translate that line is all beings in this world have a beginning, and that beginning is the mother of all beings. And the line after that?
Know the mother to know the child.
A fairly strong case can be made that according to the Tao Te Ching, if we had to gender who created the world, the origins of the universe, then that gender would be Mu, meaning birthing person. From this birthing person, Mu, how was the universe created? I'm sure you're already familiar with verse 42.
The Tao gives rise to the one gives rise to the two gives rise to the three gives rise to the myriad beings.
Who birthed the myriad beings? Recall verse 1, the mother. In a way, this is also the archetype of the virgin birth or the self-birthing god. Self-birthing goddess?
What is God?
That's another one of those big questions, right? Who or what is God? Let's start with verse 25. What came before heaven and earth?
That which came before heaven and earth was silent and boundless. It was the mother of the world. Or you could say mother of all that is under heaven, mother of all realms.
So what or who is God?
I do not know its name, but I describe it as the Tao. In the absence of a better name, I call it the Supreme.
The Tao came before that whole one, and then the two and the three to the myriad beings cell division formula for how the universe was created, right? Right. The text in first person acknowledges that they can't come up with a better name for the Tao, and so let's just call it the Supreme. What is the Supreme? The Supreme is the mother of all under heaven and the mother of the myriad beings. That mother of the myriad beings is also the goddess of fertility. And to understand mother, you must come before the gateway of the mysterious feminine. Speaking of goddess, verse 14 gives us the triple form of the Tao, the triple form of the Supreme, the triple form of the mother of the world, mother of myriad beings, the mysterious feminine. It's in triple form. It's the Tao. It's the mother of myriad beings, the mysterious feminine, gendered female, therefore triple goddess. And that triple form consists of three names that are very descriptive and characteristic of yin energy. Yi Shi Wei, the darkening, the arcane, and the evanescent.
Looking but not seeing, for it is called the darkening. Listening but not hearing, for it is called the arcane. Pursuing but not attaining, for it is called the evanescent. These three cannot be divided and are conceived as one.
Remember verse 42, the three gave rise to the myriad beings? Verse 1, the Tao is the mother of the myriad beings. The three, the triple goddess here, the darkening, the arcane, and the evanescent, are the mother of the myriad beings. God is a woman. When we're trying to understand God from a Taoist framework using the Tao Te Ching, I think we can start with the given that the Tao is the stand-in for the concept of God. The rest of verse 14 goes on to list a few more epithets or names for the Tao, which in a manner of speaking are names of God, but not using the term God as in a personal God, but as in the Tao. To address the question of what is God, in Taoist metaphysics, God is not only a noun, but God is also a verb. God is the Tao. Back to that initial verse 1.
道可道，非常道. The first reference to Tao is as a noun. The second reference, 道可道, Tao is a verb. And the third reference in that sentence to Tao is Tao as an adjective, a descriptive. When the Tao is being Taoed, or when you're Taoing, it is very Tao. 名可名，非常名, same exact literary structure, noun, verb, and adjective.
To know the name of the Tao, you need to name the name of the Tao. Point is, God in Taoism, or the Tao in Taoism, is something you have to do actively. It is the way, a path you need to actually endeavor to take. The way to navigate the way is to be virtuous, duh. What does it mean to be duh? Which is how do you walk the way? So you can name the name and Tao, verb, the Tao, noun. To answer or One of the many answers is found in the very first verse of the book titled De, though better known to us now as verse 37. 无名之朴, often translated to nameless simplicity. So God is to embody 无名之朴, nameless simplicity. What does that mean? Okay, let me give you some context. I searched for that phrase, just those 4 words, in the database of dissertations from the philosophy departments of several universities in Asia, China, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Their equivalents of our Ivy Leagues. To be totally overwhelmed by the sheer volume of papers dedicated to discourse on how you might interpret nameless simplicity. So I'm not even going to try, at least not in this video. Another aspect of nameless simplicity and the path to know God, to know the Tao, is of course the famous Wu Wei. In English, you often see it translated to non-action, which is interesting. If you consider what words mean pre-Qin dynasty, that's before 200 BC, then Wei used to mean falsehood. It meant to not be fake, to not act falsely, and to not force the situation. Don't go against nature. Wu Wei doesn't mean non-action. Wu Wei means not acting against something's nature. But put a pin in all of that because there will be a future video just on Wu Wei, because the West has got it wrong for far too long. The Taoist principle of Wu Wei is also exemplified by, I would say, the concept of a monotheistic God giving his sentient creation free will. God is the great labor and miracle it took to create this universe that you and I are now alive in. And then that God just took a step back and said, you're on your own now. You do you. I won't be interfering with your free will. That's Wu Wei 101.
Let's circle back to where we started, revisiting what is the Tao Te Ching.
Although we attribute the Tao Te Ching to Lao Tzu, chances are it was not written by one person, but in fact, portions of the text predate Lao Tzu, and what the text actually is a composite book or a compilation of pithy words of wisdom. What is the Tao Te Ching about? There was this prevailing theory for quite a while that the Tao Te Ching was similar to Sun Tzu's Art of War in that it's about military strategy and political philosophy. True or not, many of the verses are instructive on how to best rule a kingdom and how to be a wise king or ruler. In the way that the I Ching constantly refers to what the Junzi would do, and that's the standard of care we should observe in life, is that of the Junzi. In the Tao Te Ching, it is the Shengren. Shengren is the sage or the awakened one. If the I Ching, which predates the Tao Te Ching, is about what your higher self, the Junzi, would do, then the Tao Te Ching is about what you, the enlightened version of you, would do. How do you walk the path of the enlightened ones? That's what this book strives to reveal. And to that end, the book says quite unambiguously that it takes a journey to figure out what the right journey is for you. That sucks. You have to walk a path to learn about the path. Name the name to know the name. And then as soon as you figure out what path works for you, that path won't necessarily work for others. The name that has been named is no longer the true name. The name that has been named is not the true name. Meaning it's no longer a true name for someone else. As soon as you've defined a path, that path can no longer be defined. It's no longer definite. From a Taoist perspective, a Taoist teacher cannot be like the voice of Google Maps, dictating to you the directions step by step. The only thing a good Taoist teacher can do is give you an atlas. The I Ching, the Tao Te Ching are both atlases. As for whether the Tao Te Ching is feminist, the Taoist axiom is how you interpret the text says more about who you are, in this case who I am, as a person and my beliefs than it does anything objective about textual meaning. So yeah, I wouldn't say the Tao Te Ching is objectively feminist. I would say that I love how this old text, culturally and historically steeped in patriarchy, still lends itself to my feminist interpretations. That's pretty cool.